Hi, I'm Brandy. This is Hound Dog Hollow, and today for Friday Night Live, we're gonna do another Get Ready with Me. We're getting ready for the Sabbat Lammas or Lunesa, or however it is that you call it in your home or in your practice. It's typically around August 1st, but the actual astrological day. Give me 1 second. Mm-mm-mm. When we are in 1 degree, it's usually around the 5th or so. Hold on, when are we in? Oh, I'm sorry, 15 degrees. I don't actually have it for this year. Sorry, I digress. At any rate, so what we're going to talk about today is the resources that I use to get ready for a Sabbath. Disclosure alert: I haven't had I haven't had a Sabbath practice in quite a few Sabbaths because I have been busy and it's fallen off the wayside. And also, my understanding of how to honor them is different now. So I am still calling it that so that people who are streaming in, who are not familiar with me or what I advocate for, will still know what I'm talking about. But the way I consider it in my practice and in my blog and such like that is the turning wheel, as in how the world around you cycles through seasons, right? The cycle of life in the world around you. And this is the first harvest. But for some people who live in different places, they've already been harvesting food, or it's just they have a more year-round climate where they harvest food. And so a lot of people like that feel disconnected from the very Eurocentric wheel of the year. Guess what? They don't own that. You own your practice. And we're going to talk about resources, traditional ones. We're going to talk about traditional correspondences. And then I'm going to give you a brief intro into what I call the turning wheel. And by no means did I invent this concept. Lots of people do work around this. This is just how I perceive it. Is how does that pertain to you? How does that look in your land? How does it look in your life? How does that look in your cultural, your family traditions? And that's all important because, like we talk about, you are a magical being. You were born magic. Nobody can take that from you. Some of us are more naturally gifted. Some of us are not. It is what it is, but everybody has the potential, and every child is born magic. I will die on that hill. So then, having that foundation, I didn't realize that this was such a particularly controversial thought, but I believe that all religions, all cultures, all practices, secular or otherwise, have magic, superstition, ritual, tradition woven into them, and that those things become thought forms and become deeply meaningful and moving and markers of our life. And when you really pull back, for me, following astrology and following Sabbats and Esbats is also about intentionally living my finite life, right? Being in my life instead of just moving on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So what we're doing here is, how does that look in your life? What does August 1st or thereabouts look like in your land, look like in your life, look like in your culture, look like in your family? How does that look? What did you celebrate? What's special about it? What about this part of the year is different than any other part of the year that helps you live in your life? How many summers will you have? I don't know. And not one of them will ever be exactly the same. That's something joyful and also a little sad, right? So let's dive into it. What I have already, and I know a lot of you are like, I don't have money, I don't have time. I don't have. That is a very real concern. I'm going to give you as many free resources as I can. I will say another good resource that a lot of people don't consider is their library, and also where you can rent books and stuff. But also, I'm going to give you lots of information. I'm going to show you where I get information from. A lot of the sources are free. The books are not free. The books I paid good money for. And the other thing we're going to talk about that I always talk about is having discernment about the resources that you use, because there is a lot of content out there that is garbage that will steer you wrong. That is just not at all the vibe. So I start out with my Book of Shadows and a pencil sharpener, got a candle lit, got incense lit because I'm setting the scene for myself. This is mama time. And if nothing else, it's nice for that reason. I have my beverage because I got to stay hydrated. So just like every other get ready with me, I got my pencil. It's beautifully sharp. I got my Book of Shadows, which is basically, to me, I use it as a magical journal in that, like, this is what I've done. This is how it went. This is the things that I've learned. These are my thoughts. These are my inspirations. And I've kept all of them. So someday my kids can read it. But most importantly, eventually I will go back and pull my favorite things from it and make a beautiful heirloom, hand-me-down grimoire. I know it's a grimoire. I don't give a poop about that. I say it how I want to say it. Okay, so today is Friday, July 22nd. And what is special about today is that we are officially in Leo season. And I am a Leo. Where's our moon right now? We're a waning crescent. So one of the things I really like in my Book of Shadows is planetary movements. And then lunar movements really helps me stay on it. We're still in Taurus. So we're in a waning crescent in Taurus. And that's the moon. All right. And our Mercury, look where we are here. Our Mercury is in Leo. Our Venus is in Cancer. Our Mars is in Taurus. This is where the planets are right at this moment. Our Jupiter is in Aries. Our Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius. Our Uranus, is Uranus already retrograde? Not yet. It's in Taurus. Neptune is retrograde in Pisces. We've got Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. We have Chiron retrograde in Aries, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. We've got Ceres in Cancer. We've got Vesta, I believe. Yep, she's retrograde in Pisces. We've got Pallas Athena. These are asteroids, by the way. We've got Juno. Oh, Pallas Athena was in Gemini. Juno is in Pisces. And of course, True Node or North Node is in Taurus, which means that South Node is in Scorpio, right? I always write down, did I write my dreams? Yes, because these pregnancy dreams are effing killing me and I had bad ones. Did I read what Ancestors said? Yes. So on and so forth. And then I'll write, get ready with me, Llamas, because that's what I call it. You can call it what you want. So I kind of talk to you guys. The other reason that I like to do this is because I make a big deal about getting all these planners, so many planners, more planners than most people have. And a lot of you are like, what do you do with that? So when I do these Get Ready With Me, I kind of show you how I pull that information into my practice. So it's not just wasted. I've always been a paper person. I want paper. I want my books to be paper. My planner, though, I have had a lot more success this year, digital. I have been more consistent. It has been easier for me to access this information wherever I am in my busy life digitally. So And we talked about this a little bit with my Get Ready With Me for the full moon. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to share with you resources that you can use. There's tons out there. Of course, you're not limited to what I suggest. This is just a conversation that we're having as spiritual people trying to connect. Okay. So on my phone, I go through, first thing I check is my emails because I subscribe to a lot of different content creators, and they will release things about llamas, about full moons, about astrological transits. And so I actually don't think I got that many. Um, and I do not. So that's okay. No worries. Sometimes I get one from Tamed Wild. I might have gotten one from Tamed Wild and accidentally deleted it. I don't know. And we've talked about that in the past. Just looking at a glance and make sure I'm not missing it in a different spot and I don't see it. So that's fine. The next spot that I personally do is at the beginning of every month. I go through my physical planners that I don't have a digital copy for, and I take pictures of the things that are going to be pertinent that month. Just so I can have it on my phone and I'm not just like, oh, I don't have my planners, I can't do my thing. No, if I'm at karate or if I'm at the park on a play date or if I'm on my lunch break at work, I could pull out my phone and just make some notes. And that is still better than not doing anything. What we're talking about here isn't picture perfect aesthetic witchery. We're not doing that here. I'm a busy mom. I'm a nurse practitioner. I am a mother. I have a lot going on. And I want to connect, but I got to do so in ways that are reasonable for me, that are meaningful for me, and that are accessible for me so that I spend more of my time actually engaging in spiritual practice and less of my time feeling really guilty that I'm not doing enough. So, all right, let's look here. New moon. So we'll do that week ahead. We've talked about how that looks for me. We've done Get Ready With Me for both of those. I don't know if any of the planners that I don't have digital copies for do have stuff. So I'll put that there. So put a pin in that. I didn't actually have any references there. The next thing I check is social media because I do follow witchy content creators to see if they've posted anything, but I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. Hi, Jen. Just getting ready for llamas, but I'm also talking about resources that I'm using, traditional correspondences, and what I'm also preaching, which is the turning wheel, which is basically how can you personalize that to you, your area, your practice, your life. Just really quickly. So I'm going to tell you a secret. I don't follow that many witch influencers anymore. I really had to step back and unfollow a lot and silence or mute a lot more as well. And the reason is that the community is really volatile and really toxic. And I'm just not about that life. I'm really sensitive right now when I'm pregnant. And I'm actually pretty sick too. Having a rough pregnancy. So of course I say that and I get a big old surge of nausea. So I had to step away from that because the social media, instead of being fun and engaging, was really toxic. So I don't follow very many content creators on witchy content creators on social media, except for the few that we've talked about in the past. So Chani Nicholas, Celestial Bruja, The Witching Hour, Kiara Stellar. Most of them are astrology based, really and truly astrology based. And the reason for that, Chris, I want to say his name correctly, Chris Corsini, I believe. Let me see who else we got here. And they usually have a Hemi Aura, of course. They usually have really good content. Most of it is SBAT or astrological or tarot themed. I find that people who are professional witchy influencers have have to engage in the community in a certain way that really pushes the algorithm in their favor, which of course that is your job. If you're making a livelihood, it is what it is. But for me, it was too much. So trying to see if my favorite person has any content. And of course, you obviously, as you go through your day, will say, hey, oh, I'm going to write that down as you're going through your own social media pages. You're looking at it. So there's nothing about llamas on my Instagram, which is great. I honestly don't need a lot of other people's opinions because, as you guys know, I already have a pretty set up practice because I'm really blessed and I live on a farm. And so it's kind of like, okay, I'm always noticing nature because I got to feed my animals. I got to get the eggs. I got to take care of this. I got to water the garden. I got to do this, that, and the other. So practical living kind of engages me in the land around me, which I think that we can work it into anybody's life. Let's see. Does Chani app I've talked about have anything for? She sometimes does have it for different things, but she doesn't for this, and that's totally fine. So then my resources on my phone are basically nailed this Sabbath, and that's okay. The other place where I have all of my planners is on my iPad because I got good notes. No, this is not the right one. Stop it. I got 10 million Minecraft pages open because my little boy plays Minecraft on this one. Okay. So resources. And we could talk briefly about Leo, but it really doesn't pertain to what we're doing here with llamas. I don't know if the Astro Twins talk about Sabbats. Let's check. Nope, they do not. So we'll go to my good notes, which is where I keep all of my planners that I bought for the year. So I believe that, let's see if Spirit de la Lune covers it. Okay. And they do not. Okay, and that's fine too. So we're just looking through all of my planners. Next is the Soul Care Planner. I'm looking for that. And they don't cover it either, and that's fine. So it doesn't look like actually any of my planners that I have digitally go over that, which is fine. No worries. So then I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 books and 3 physical planners that I pulled aside from my personal library that I would use as resources. So these are 3 of the planners that I bought this year. And of course, at the end of the year, I'll do a review where I'm just like, hey, I like that. This is a strong point about this. I didn't like this so much. Am I going to buy it again? And so on and so forth. I'll do an end of the year planner review, and then I'll do planner reviews as I get them in for the year. So this one is the Stacy DeMarco. And one of the reasons I got it is because I like some of her decks, and it's really pretty. I don't like anything else about it. It's just not for me. Okay, so she does go over the Wheel of the Year. I will warn that this is from a Southern Hemisphere creator. So their perception and my perception is often not resonating. So, feeling real gratitude for what you have is something you should consider doing on a regular basis. It shouldn't be a comparison between yourself and others, but rather an examination of what the harvest of your own life is. Really seeing what you have and how far you come, and understanding how you have journeyed from one year to another and what you should be grateful for is very powerful. So, I'm going to write that down because I actually like that take. One of the things about harvest festivals, of which there are three, is gratitude. My son's in the pool and he's really excited. Gratitude is a huge part. You're reaping what you sow. You're grateful for what you have. So I definitely, gratitude is a daily practice for me. And we talked about that on last Friday, or was it 2 weeks ago, Friday Night Live. So I'm definitely writing that. And what are you harvesting? How far you've come. Okay, in the lives of farming peoples a couple thousand years ago, not just a couple thousand years ago, my friend, literally now, there's lots of farmers now. Time was a big deal. If you have ever grown your own vegetables or even a few pots of herbs, you'll know how grateful and happy you feel when you're ready to harvest and eat the food you have grown with your own hands. So imagine what whole communities that have worked hard to produce food over the seasons had to be happy about. If you live in a farm community, I live in an agricultural community. This is actual life for a lot of us. I know a lot of people live in cities, but for many people across the globe, the wheel of the year is an actual thing that they honor, that they work with, that is their lived experience every day. So we're not talking about abstract concepts. She kind of like it's something, yeah, she kind of says it like it's something in the past. It's right now. Your community's doing fairs, your community's doing 4-H competitions. There's a lot of people literally now reaping the fruit of their labors. So just keep in mind perspective. I've harvested one garlic bed and I've got to do the other. And of course, we have baby poles, so animals, and just getting our eggs every day. It's all just kind of notice what it is that you're harvesting in your life. So, getting together to assist each other with harvesting and the trade that surrounded these activities was a grand excuse for villagers to get together and celebrate the bounty. It was also a time to share news and gossip and to perhaps arrange a marriage or to see extended family. How to celebrate llamas. The smell of freshly baked bread is what I associate with llamas. I always start by baking. And that is very traditional, baking, because llamas in Eurocentric cultures coincides with the first harvest of grains. It's a grain harvest, right? So the three harvest festivals are Lammas, which is grains, Mavan or autumn equinox, which is fruits and vegetables. And then, of course, we have Samhain, which is animals that we would cull before the winter, right? So the blood harvest, living things. What's funny, so I would never bake bread on Lammas, and the reason why is because it's 100 effing degrees outside, and if I try to turn the oven on, my husband's going to cut me. So again, how does it work in your life? Always keep that in mind. Take it in, learn what you can. It's good to learn historical stuff, but also always kind of think like, what can I use here? What's the actual thread? The thread is reaping what you sow. The thread is harvesting what you've put your efforts into, right? We talked about that with the Capricorn full moon. You set your goals at the beginning of the year. Now you're reviewing how it's going and reorganizing yourself. This is the first harvest. You're reaping what you're sown so far. There's still more time. There's still more time to adjust your goals, to adjust your life, to work things out, or to shift your perspective, your goals, or how you're doing things to get where you're going, right? Just always think in terms of like, how can I take this information and transcribe it to my life? I always start by baking. I normally try and prepare the dough and let it rise the night before, then bake it on Lammas morning. It really doesn't matter how badly it turns out. It always smells good. Good for her. I just had a wonderful thought. I was like, what bread do I eat this time of year? This is not a bread time for me. Fall is a bread time for me. But the county fair, I have a funnel cake, one funnel cake a year at the county fair. My husband and son can go through one each, but I usually pick off their plates. And I'm going to write that down for myself to kind of think about, like, secularly, what are we looking at as far as honoring the Sabbats? And secularly, this is fair season. Llamas is fair season. Your 4-Hers are reaping what they sow. Your community is saying, look what I've grown. Look at these things. Let's celebrate together. That is what your county fair and your state fair are. They're a celebration very similar to llamas. And don't get me wrong, I know that the county fair and the state fair change in time based on where you are. We're having it right now in Oregon, in various counties. I know when I lived in Washington, it was the end of August, early September, obviously because their growing season is different. And in Southern California, it's probably different. And wherever you are, it's probably different. But again, trying to take these concepts and make them apply to your life and apply them to your life. So not just learning the information, but putting it into practice, right? Alchemizing it. I decorate my altar with food that represents the harvest. Yay, Jen. Thank you. That's good. And it doesn't have to be the exact date, but it's around that time, right? We're midsummer. And I know midsummer is June 21st. I always think of that as beginning of summer, and I think of llamas as midsummer. This is the height of summer. I decorate my altar with food that represents the harvest. It could be lots of produce from my garden that I'm growing, but traditionally it's fruits such as apples and pears or seeds and vegetables. And again, what's fresh in your area? That could be a nice way for you to celebrate. So usually August is peaches in my area, and we go to Peach Palooza. We get tons of peaches, and we can them and we eat them. What's in season in your area? That's another good way to A, get out into your area, B, learn what's in season in your area, and C, give some money to your local farmer or your farmer's market, your local orchard if you have one. If you're in a city, you can still pick up the fruit that's in season in your area, but maybe you don't get it directly from a farm. Maybe you just get it from the grocery store, and that's still valid because the exercise is knowing what's going to be in season in your area. The llama's altar colors are gold, orange, brown, and green. I may invite others over for a feast and have everyone bring a plate. Very popular, of course, are baked goods. What do I think of in my life around this? Summer barbecue. I've got 2 events this weekend. I've got events next weekend, and so on and so on. This is when we're getting together and we're feeding each other and we're socializing. Very popular is baked goods. So we have many cakes. Someone brings homemade meat and someone else makes candles and brings them to decorate the table. As the candles are lit, everyone is invited to share about what they are grateful for and what their personal harvest is for this time. I always like to do that at my table. That's an excellent habit. Whenever you're breaking bread with others, we go around the table and we say what we're grateful for. If you have experienced an uncertain year, taking the time to celebrate or at least mark what you have achieved is important for your confidence and mental health. Feeling as though you are progressing and changing for the better brings peace and relief. Knowing that others support you and see you and what you are trying to achieve can make all the difference. And that's all she wrote, but I feel pretty good about what we have gleaned from that lesson. So another planner I got was the Wee Moon. This one's a very rich, poetic resource. It's mostly poetry and stuff, but it does have the year at a glance and the beginning of the year. They're just excellent. They're some of my favorites. So let's see what they have to say about llamas. This beautiful page here. With the afterglow of late summer purring in our bodies, and the land and the days are lulled and languorous, The communities of trees are hanging heavy canopies as their life force is directed into the berries, fruits, nuts, and seeds. The mellifluous hum of the nectar gatherers, wasps, and worker bees fill the air with their symbiotic symphony. The moon is low and orange over the fields, the first fruits of our labors ripe enough to be eased from the branch and baked into a harvest loaf. A change in the evening air signals that the halcyon days are ending. It heightens our awareness that only a small percentage of the world has cornucopias of surplus. Summoning the medicine of dragonfly who can jump tracks, adapt with lightning ease, fly backwards and forwards into the past and future, we initiate deep wisdom circles to welcome indigenous wisdom already known. Donut and gift economies to close the global poverty gap and share this love fest from the earth who could feed us all mouth to mouth. That was really pretty. So we're talking about, so here really conveyed, at least to me, because this is my experience in the Pacific Northwest, the feeling of this Sabbath, which is like the earth is heavy with bounty. These are warm days, but at the same time, we're getting into a transition period. We are at the peak of something, and now it's going to change into something else. And that's always endlessly fascinating to me, to see how things are changing, to see how things are moving and growing. So again, more poetic than informative, but definitely conveys that wonderful feeling that I have. When I was a kid, summer was my favorite season, mostly because it was off school, but I just loved barbecues. I just loved going to places, going to cookouts, that kind of thing. So sorry, I couldn't help myself. I have really severe anemia, and it makes me want to eat ice. All right, Llewellyn's Sabbath Almanac. I have these since like 2017. Chock full of information. I'm gonna glean through it though. So here's their art. But I do realize this is my first time sharing this resource in this way this year. So I'm going to give it a little bit more time than I will in future ones, just so that you can get familiar with this if this is something you want. So they always have an intro where their person, and it's usually one of their authors from Llewellyn, kind of talks about what the Sabbath means to them and how they're how they're changing it, or how they're using it as a transition or whatever. It always ties into the ritual at the end. So let's look at this. Let's read a brief excerpt. Yes, it's called pica. So if you're really anemic, you get the urge to eat things that are technically not food, like ice, clay, dirt. I've never had the dirt feeling, but man, I will eat a whole thing of ice. Unfortunately, I'm so severely anemic, though, that I am going to require an infusion, and if that doesn't work, a transfusion. So hopefully we will be A-okay. A previous summer, not long ago, I was standing on the top of the West Kennet Long Barrow near Avebury in England. It had been a bit of a harrowing hike, and my shoes and socks were thoroughly soaked from the copious morning dew. But as I looked around, the complaints my feet were sending to my brain were hushed by the view. The sun was just gaining purchase in the startling blue morning sky. All around me, the wind gently rippled the fields of grain that surrounded the ancient burial site. The resident swallow couple went about their business, giving me a minimal side-eye as they darted around the large stones. I tried to imagine what this land looked like back during the time of the people who had built this mound. In the distance, I could see the stones and hills that had beckoned people from all around, marking Avebury as a central gathering space. Yeah. As I surveyed the beautiful landscape surrounding me, I thought, if I lived in this place, I'd definitely be celebrating the Wheel of the Year as many modern pagans have come to know it in the last half century. Ooh, she's going to talk on a topic we're really talking about, because I was like, that's nice that it's in England, but how many of us live in England? I don't think very many of my viewership does. So let's see. Even Lunesa. How could you not feel connected to the harvest cycle with all of this beautiful grain surrounding you, singing with the spirit of the land? Again, farmers exist in every state. I promise you. You really want to connect to the land? Go to your county fair. Find out what 4-H is doing. Go to your farmer's market. But I digress. Just writing notes. You can hear the ancient myths being told on the wind as it brushes the grasses. These lands are part of the origin of the cycle. I'm going to tell you guys right now, so is the land you live on. Even if it's a city, even if it's in Arizona, if it's in Thailand, if it's in Alaska, the Arctic, all of those things exist where you are too. But back home, it's a whole other beast. There are different seasons, different climate cycles, different land spirits, patterns unique unto themselves. That means that parts of the wheel of the year cycle just don't match up to the heartbeat of where I live. Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. Even the places I have lived that are closer to the climate of England or resemble the landscape are still very different in how they feel and follow the seasons. True, you could squint your eyes on a summer day and a farm in southern New Jersey might pass for the English countryside, but why would you want to? That farm in New Jersey is probably absolute paradise to the people who live there. But the history, the land, and the surrounding waters and creatures all have a different story to tell, worthy of celebration in their own right. Which is why I feel Lunesa is a great reminder that if we are going to observe a wheel of the year in our practice, it should make sense with where and when we are living. Oh, girl, preaching to the choir. That's what we're here for today. Lunesa is often considered a bit of the oddball Sabbath. Many folks don't know what to make of it. The solstices and the equinoxes have their logical place for sure and are easily understood. When it comes to the cross-quarter days, Belton and Samhain are well known and also well loved, sort of like the big holidays of Christmas and Easter in Christianity. Imbolc has a beloved goddess, Bridget, and again, that depends on your own personal. I don't follow Bridget. But Imbolc is the first stirrings of the earth where I live. So there's going to be things happening under the ground. Associated with it for many to connect with, along with a human need to feel like we are finally making way against the cold and the dark. At the tail end of winter, we need little excuse to light up some candles and celebrate to get us through to spring. But Lammas, the one I like to call the bread holiday, it's usually the one folks most often cite that makes them feel meh or bad about not feeling their practice. Why is that? What is this Sabbath all about? Lunesa marks the beginning of the harvest season in the Celtic world and is named after the god Lu. It is celebrated with feasting, games, and making of corn dollies and special breads that may be ritually sacrificed. It is also a favorite day for hand fastings in some traditions. According to folklore, Lu's mother, Taltu, I can't pronounce Celtic, passed away from exhaustion after clearing the land to make way for agriculture. So he held a funeral feast and games to celebrate her memory. Yet the modern observation of this event tends to focus more on him and his deeds rather than her sacrifice, so that particular tends to get a bit lost. The deeper symbolism is that Lunesa is a celebration of both the labor of the earth itself and those who work with the land to grow food. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in the northern hemisphere, I'm sorry, we're just talking about my hemisphere where I live. So, what if you're not intimately working with Celtic deities, but some other pantheon altogether, or maybe not at all? What if you're not quite a green witch and you don't find yourself out in the fields or in the garden? Maybe your harvest season started months prior, so this seems like an odd time for a first harvest. Heck, what if you're sensitive or allergic to gluten and just the idea of a bread holiday, or as I like to call it, gluten gala, gives you hives or or an upset stomach? Whatever the reason, you might find it really hard to connect to this particular Sabbath. Perhaps maybe you're also feeling this way about some of the others too. I'm here to help you out. First, it's important to recognize that the Wheel of the Year, as modern practitioners know it, with its 8 Sabbats, is a fairly recent creation dating back to the mid 20th century. Absolutely true. Ancient societies did not celebrate all of these 8 Sabbats in a row. It pulls from the history and mythology of the United Kingdom, Eurocentric, piecing together different practices over centuries with modern interpretations. Because it's rooted in lore of the region, it definitely makes the most amount of sense there, though not uniformly depending on the region. As we move further away, we see some overlap with other locations and cultures with some of the Sabbats, but the seasons, names, and practices start to differ more and more. What's a witch to do? We need to foster connections with where we live and let those be our guide to crafting a wheel that works for our practice. It takes a bit more work since you'll be creating your own framework, but the results are worth it. Another thing to consider is that we also have a tendency to fixate on days and specific date. In nature, seasons rarely align perfectly with the calendar and they can vary in number and length depending on where you live. Instead, consider that the wheel is more about the flow of seasons and not specific days. That's why I call it the turning wheel. We're talking about the cycle of the earth. It's not going to be exact on time. Even, I mean, some of you have an on time menstrual cycle, but even then it might fluctuate certain days. Instead, consider a wheel of the year largely acknowledges the solar cycle, the way the planet reacts as we orbit around the sun, heating up and cooling down as we turn on our axis, affecting each hemisphere and altitude differently. That means while Arizona is experiencing monsoon season, fires are burning in California, and hurricanes and typhoons take up resident in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans all at once. Yep, August is the beginning of hurricane season. Now, I'm not saying to abandon celebrating Sabbats on certain days. Having predetermined days is crucial when you're organizing groups, covens, and festivals. Everyone needs to know when and where to meet, but in your personal practice, you can expand past a single day observance, which is what I do for Samhain. I celebrate a whole week. And the same thing for solstice. I celebrate a whole week because I celebrate all the secular and religious holidays around those times. You can expand your practice past a single day observance or one official ritual and open yourself to more ways to explore the season with your magic. And so I'm just going to take a couple notes because I felt like this was actually really timely. Um, um, So, finding meaning. Here are some guidelines to help you find more meaning in the Sabbats, whether you plan to work with the classic model of the Wheel of the Year or would like to assemble one unique to your practice. I'm still going to work in the framework of the Wheel of the Year. I do live in the Pacific Northwest, and we do follow an agricultural cycle here. But of course, the markers and the meaning are different for me in my personal life and in my interpretation of the spirituality. I'm going to put farmers and migrant workers because that's the backbone of agricultural work where I live and most of the country. And so if we're talking about harvesting and we're talking about gratitude, we also need to be grateful for our farmers, for our migrant workers, for people who are literally putting in the hard labor of feeding us. Connect with the spirit of place. Absolutely. Absolutely. Where we live is the root of our practice. Yes, we are influenced by our ancestral practices, where we grew up, if it's different than where we are now, the traditions we may initiate into, etc. But there's no denying that ignoring where you reside in your practice is like a fish swimming in air. It doesn't work. We are embodied spiritual beings existing in a physical realm, and there's immediate magic to be found right underneath your feet. Tapping into it is a conduit to those distant places. The planet is all interconnected. Trying to connect to a faraway place while being disconnected to where you are makes the process much harder. I'm just going to write that. It is possible to honor both lands afar, be it your ancestry or traditional roots, and where you reside. It may require two different kinds of ritual, one from a tradition and one you create to acknowledge the land. But understand that ritual doesn't have to be elaborate. Sometimes even the simplest of gestures can be incredibly powerful. I'm going to go ahead and give the disclosure that I don't usually work on Sabbats. Sabbats are celebration times. It is my time where I'm honoring nature and what's going on in the world around me, the natural world specifically. To help you connect with where you live, look to the folklore of the area. Head over to the anthropology section of the library to dive deeper for starters. What are the stories and history of the place? Who was there before you? What are the landmarks and features of this land? Consider the best way to formally introduce yourself and interact with the land through ritual. And of course, getting to know your land and your area is really important. Connect with the spirit of the season. Remember that seasons are not run by dates on the calendar. Spring can arrive early, winter can start late. When we start to become more in tune with the goings on of the weather, we pick up on nature's patterns much more easily. What is the nature of your land season at this time of year? What are the plants and animals doing? How does the air make you feel? I'm glad she says that because I can smell the change in seasons. Is there a specific crop or other seasonal event that coincides with this time of year? Is it something you can see being integrated into your personal practice? It doesn't all have to be combined into one ritual, but rather can progress through the whole season, focusing on different characteristics that define the season. Another excellent point. This is actually a really good article. And so when we do get ready with me, there are pauses while I actually take notes because I'm getting ready too, right? I'm reminding myself, I'm jogging my memory. I'm thinking about how that applies to my life. And we're doing it in real time together. We're journaling in my living room together doing this, right? Okay. Land, plants, animals, air, crops, in season, seasonal events. These are all great notes. So we talked about barbecues, fairs. Um, for me, peaches are in season right now, or they will be on August 1st, the end of this month, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm harvesting garlic. My turkeys just had babies. Peaches are coming into season. Yeah. Integrating deities and other practices. As I mentioned earlier, most folks seem to be able to connect with the equinoxes and the solstices, and usually some variation of Beltane and Samhain, largely because they can be viewed with the context that fits other cultures, even if the names aren't the same. If you work with deity spirits and ancestors that aren't associated with the modern wheel of the year, you might find there are myths and practices that do overlap with existing dates. If you wish to celebrate on the same pattern of the wheel, or you may choose to alter the structure of the wheel to incorporate events that are more relevant to your practice. Is there a festival honoring a certain deity that is special to you? Is there a similar Sabbath but it happens at a slightly different time of the year? What has the most amount of meaning for you and your practice? Simply honor life. If you don't work with deities, then consider what this time of year means for you personally. Is there a shift in how you function as the light decreases? Do you transition from vacation to work or school? Or at the very least, the time of Lughnasad is about relishing the last days of summer while we're still embedded within them. Relishing them or counting down to fall, it just depends because, man, I hate summer. I don't like being hot. And my husband is almost pathologically against being anti hot. So it makes us bicker more. So, not my favorite season. Mm-mm. I mean, if anything, we are just like on our honeymoon in the fall and the spring, especially the fall and the spring. Man, it's just like being newlyweds. We're just so in love with each other and our land and the life that we build. It's our season. And maybe that's like that for you. It's our connecting time. It's our getting out into nature and camping and working on our house and building this life together. It's our time. are those seasons. Summer is rough because we don't like being hot and we don't like anything that the other person does. That's not true. But it is harder when you really, really don't feel comfortable in your body. And that's hard for my husband because he does the physical labor outside, especially with my pregnancy. And he's hot. He don't like being hot. So I'm going to take some notes about this because I really like the things. So what's your personal function? Like, how do you like the season? What's going on in your life? Like, are you working? Are you schooling? Are you vacationing? Are your kids in summer school? And that puts on some strain for you because who's going to watch them? Or, there's a lot. Are you relishing summer or looking forward to fall? Or counting down days is what I put. My boys are happy outside, though. They're in the pool. Remember why we celebrate. Lastly, it's important to consider that ritual is about connection and marking transitions. If you choose to celebrate a Sabbath, don't do it because you feel obligated. Ritual celebrates life itself, the patterns that connect us to nature, to our ancestors, to our communities, and to ourselves. We do it to honor the past, to recognize the cycle of death and life happening around us, and to weave our threads into the larger tapestry of the universe, which is why it's so vital and important to connect it to how you actually live, because then it'll have meaning for you. Don't just do it to do it. Unless you want to, by all means. So that was actually an excellent article. I'm going to tell you that the author was Laura Tempest Zarkoff. And so then the next part that's really cool is that they give you the cosmic sway, which is like what's going on astrologically, what's going on in the world. So I'm going to read this too because I feel like it's good information. With August comes fruits of spring and summer's efforts. On the farm and in the garden, some gather to harvest berries, corn, and other gifts of the earth. Also known as Lammas in some traditions, this festival of the loaf includes baking and blessing bread from the season's first grains. Assembling around food continues to be a primary way to socialize in present time, and in early August, locally grown foods are enjoyed and plentiful at farmers markets, local grocers, and eateries that provide farm-to-table delights. Lughnasad is the time of the Sun King. The felt sense of Lughnasad celebration is expressed and embedded in the name Lu, shine, and Nasad, assembly, suggesting gathering in the bright sun during the midpoint of summer. Derived from Celtic mythology of Lu, a sun god, this festival marks a cross quarter which actually occurs days after the traditional calendar date, August 1st. On August 7th or 8th, it's 7th or 8th, that's the actual day. The sun reaches 15 degrees of the astrology sign Leo, and we are halfway between summer solstice and autumn equinox. Lughnasad is a time of shift for the sun, and waning hours of daylight become more obvious. This time is often chosen for vacations, reunions, outdoor art fairs, concerts, and other events that lend well to clear skies, warm sunshine, and colorful sunsets. A desire to prolong summer enjoyment prompts us to assemble as if to gather summer rays and gifts before darker, cooler days arrive. We bathe in light and water, absorbing the natural shine of middle summer. So again, what I'm getting from that chapter is the vibe, right? The summer vibe. What people who love summer get from summer. Gatherings, family reunions, connections, fresh food. And of course, it's all based on our worldview. Because I'm going to tell you right now, most people actually live in food deserts, meaning that they're not within 3 miles of an actual grocery stores. And so a lot of people do not have access to fresh foods and vegetables. So that is something to be really grateful for. So I digress. The other thing that came to my mind is when we think about the harvest of the first grains and then we immediately think bread, that's very interesting because I was also thinking, well, you get tons of corn, and with corn, you make masa, so you make tortillas. So if you wanted to, a fresh, you can get them fresh. I'm lucky to live in an area where there's panaderias that have fresh baked goods from local stuff. You can get yourself some fresh tortillas. I can get fresh tortillas at the farmer's market, but again, I live in an agricultural area. And to me, fresh tortillas with grilled meat just sounds like chef's kiss. Just identify what your whole grains are that you actually eat and enjoy. Tortillas, tacos, gratitude around access. And then, of course, gatherings to fresh food. And those are just my personal notes. Astrology for Lughnasad 2022. Lughnasad follows the... Oh, dang. Are you hearing me clearly now? I wonder. It usually warns me when my internet's bad. Can you hear me now? Just let me know, Jen. Lughnasad follows the July 28th new moon in Leo and precedes Aquarius full moon on August 11th. Hey, it's actually my lunar return because guess what? I was born on a full moon on August 11th, 38 years ago. So much excite. And I'm going to be with my mama and my son and my husband, so pretty exciting. The new moon and sun harmonize with Jupiter in Aries, fueling courage, initiative, and momentum. Innovative and creative methods are favored. On August 1st, earthy sensual Virgo moon accompanies the fiery Leo sun, and likewise, planets dominate earth and fire signs. Uranus and the North Node in Taurus together break long-held paradigms related to money, stability, and growth. Some will experience an undeniable sense of life purpose and remove all obstacles, clearing their paths to follow their calling. Conventional is replaced by ingenious and radical as these two forces combine. The moon void, of course, from 6:29 p.m. on August 1st to 12:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on August 2nd. Void, of course, moon time lends well to parties and gathering as it tends to help us relax socially and let tensions go. As Lughnasad passes, the full moon alights on August 11 in Aquarius, a sign of friendship, community, and collective energy. The moon approaches Saturn, planet of karma, commitment, and consequence, presenting opportunities to resolve past injustices and to fully engage in devotion to others and our planet. At this time, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, the closest planets to Earth, move forward at their usual pace, while some of the more distant planets are retrograde. Having the other planets direct may be helpful for early August pursuits and celebrating love. Lughnasad is a traditional time for weddings, vows taken for life or for 1 year or a day feature Venus in either Cancer or Leo this August. For the first 10 days, Venus is in Cancer, blesses home and family and honors society. Partners wedded now will thrive with emotional intimacy and strong roots. They kindle romance throughout the relationship and are known for unconditional love. Then Venus crosses into Leo on August 11th and tours Leo through early September. Venus and Leo marriages flourish with social friendships, adventures, and unwavering loyalty. The sun will be in Leo for the entire period of Lughnasad. This sun sign radiates a sense of playfulness, longevity, creativity, and joy for partners married from July 22nd through August 22nd with either Venus sign. Leo rules the heart and spine for love and courage required in enduring relationships. Attune to the felt sense of your own heart, Lughnasad, as the wheel of the year turns. So then they've got some aligning stuff. Create sacred space with colors, crystals, amulets, and any other items needed for your own Lughnasad rituals. It is traditional for altars to face west, recognizing the waning sun and sunset. Also call your attention to the south, the direction of the summer season, and the astrological element of fire during Leo time. Invoke the flora and fauna of the south and west. Honor the creatures associated with summer and the south, such as orioles, finches, blackbirds, cougar, dolphin, dragonfly, and lizard. More importantly, call upon beings that hold special meaning for you. So sunflowers. I'm gonna write some of this down. Sunflowers. I love sunflowers. They're my favorite. Other flowers that are yellow, gold, and orange can be harvested and planted. The same colors should maybe reflected throughout your home with clothes, bedding, candles, or even glasses and dinnerware used during high summer. Refresh your kitchen as a sacred space for baking with corn and under grains. You know what else? Not just baking, but canning. It's a good time to can. So I'll be canning peaches. Corn, grains, fire, and earth inspire the colors for the season. And while orange and gold are obvious, balance them between greens and browns for Mother Earth. Crystals of the same shades can be added to your altar or worn as jewelry. Citrine, yellow agate, tiger's eye. Um, green crystals such as aventurine and malachite align with the heart center. The next article is about tales and traditions. So grain goddesses. I'm not going to read all of that. What I do like is that there are references. I always enjoy when there's references. Feast and treats are just suggestions for what to eat. Grateful grain burgers. Summer vegetable medley. I love grilled veggies. And grilled peaches. Yum. Crafty crafts. Bread dough ornaments. Candle magic. Burning spell for letting go. Lughnasad is an ideal Sabbath for letting go of things you no longer need. It's a good time to examine your life to see if anything is holding you back or keeping you from reaching your potential. Agriculturally, it's a time of year we celebrate the first harvest, but often to make room for the good things in your life, you must clear away what is no longer needed. So I'm going to write reevaluate. Okay, so I'm just taking some notes. So they've given an example of a release spell for a candle burning and a good morning candle spell. It's a good start spell for the day. And then of course lighting the way spell. These are just different things. Llamas ritual, again by the first person who spoke about the season, and just it's a gratitude ritual. We are often thinking about what we're receiving, what we've labored over, and giving back gratitude. So you can make an offering. It's all, and then there's pages for notes. So honestly, I love this book. I buy it every year. It's got excellent resources that I totally suggest. I'm actually going to put it here because I might actually, I'm out of reach. Anyway, so last part is, I hope my audio is better. It's okay because I'm doing the best that I can. I'm going to take a quick drink. That was a lot of speaking, but it was a lot of information. I love this book. I talk about it all the time. I love this book. I use it a lot. So there's a chapter, and the chapter is called Astrological and Time Reckoning. And you can look up moon phases, months, zodiac signs, seasons, days of the week, times of day, and celebrations. So here is Llamas. So the moon is the solar system. The moon phase is waning because, of course, we've reached our peak and now we're coming down. The season is summer. The colors are brown, gold, orange, purple, and yellow. The trees are acacia, apple, myrtle, oak, and rowan. The herbs and gardens are blackberries and brambles, gorse, aloe, ginseng, grains. The gemstones and minerals are citrine and peridot. Goddesses and gods are Ain, Ceres, Demeter, Ereshkigal, Freya, Frigg, Inanna, Ishtar, Kori, Persephone, Dumuzi, Lu, and Odin. Animals are cattle. Birds are chicken or rooster. Issues, intentions, and power, accomplishment, agriculture, challenges, darkness, death, endings, release, and transformation. Particularly of significance this season because our North Node is in Taurus, right? And it's going to be there for 18 months. And Taurus is the sign of the bull, but it also has to do with earthly delights and agriculture and what we harvest. And so they're going to be big themes because we're having food shortages, guys. So if you haven't thought about agriculturally where your food is coming, how you can make sure that you have food stores, how you have food security, where your food is coming from. If you have the space or anything to grow about food, always consider that. Or if you haven't, start. This is really important. And it's going to be important in this part of our lives, particularly because the North Node is in Taurus. And also, this is harvest time. So if harvests go really, really poorly, it will affect the supply chain. It will affect food. There will be famine. So we got to be really careful to always kind of, not always, but you really want to consider where your food is coming from. You really want to consider your connection to your food. You really want to consider your food sources. Those are a couple things. The other thing I think of is the rooster in particular because I associate him with the sun card, which is Leo's card. Well, it's a card that I associate with Leo because Leo's ruled by the sun. You could also think of strength as Leo's card. Challenges, darkness, death, endings, release, and transformation. So that's a really interesting ideas. So I'm going to write some notes for my personal practice. Of course, oak, because I have big oak trees in the back of my property. And of course, for me, bramble. Blackberries are a thing here. Grains. Not so much into the goddesses, but I am going to say cattle. Because in my family, we've been talking a lot about getting a cow. And chicken. And again, a lot going on with my animals. Then, of course, the intentions are accomplishment. We're talking about what we're harvesting. Agriculture. We're talking about food. It's big food season. Challenges. When we talk about what we have accomplished, we're talking about overcoming challenges. We're also talking about where we didn't overcome challenges. Darkness, yes. It's coming. Death. Yes, when you harvest the plants, they die. You're eating them. Endings. Release. And transformation. I also have Solitary Witch as a resource because she does have a section on all the Esbits and the Sabbats and some suggestions for celebrating. And of course, if you don't vibe with Silver Raven Wolf, take it with a grain of salt, however. Let's look at this. Sabbats, page 72. This one's really dusty because I haven't pulled it down in a while. All right, what are we looking at? All right, llamas, other names, Lunesa, Lunastal, date August 1st or 2nd, meaning of the word. Llamas means half mass in the feast of bread. Nasa means to give in marriage, and Lu is the name of the Celtic god. Primary focus is bread harvest, first harvest, grain harvest, grains of sports, blessing and saning rites, payment of debts, weather magic. The age of the holiday is unknown. The popular mythos is Lu, which we've already talked about. Sacrifice of fruits to the soil, season of hand fasting. Occurs in 15 degrees Leo. The planetary ruler is the sun. The first of the harvest celebrations accompanies hay, grain, and cereal, and appears to be the best known for its festival atmosphere and temporary fastings in medieval documentation. Ideas for your llama Sabbat: bake bread, bless marriages, babies, or homes. Personally, I like to protect and bless my home in the fall because you're fall cleaning and you're closing it up for the winter, but I digress. Have an outdoor picnic. Make a wreath out of grain to honor the harvest. That's a really nice, that's a nice touch. Go camping. I like a lot of these ideas. This is why I love, this book came out when I was I bought this first time when I was 19 years old and still pertains to stuff I do. So I'm just gonna, bake, picnic, camp, use photographs taken over the summer to honor harvest home, or spend the week before llamas taking pictures of the countries or mountain to make a magical collage of Thanksgiving. Design an outdoor scavenger hunt. And that's basically it. So brief, but good ideas. Then I have, of course, these are suggestions that I'm just sharing while I have time. I hope that the sound quality is okay, but it is what it is at this point. So I do love this series, the modern witchcraft series, the Grimoire and the Wheel of the Year. The Wheel of the Year is way in depth, so we're going to start with the Grimoire. And I literally opened it right to the correct chapter. So this one's written by Sky Alexander, and this one is written by Judy Ann Nock. Different authors, so a little bit different point of views. So we already heard about Lu ad nauseum. In agrarian cultures, this holiday marked the time to begin preparing for the barren winter months that lay ahead. Our ancestors cut, ground, and stored grains, canned fruits and vegetables, and brewed wine and beer. Not just your ancestors, your neighbors. Your neighbors do that now. Let's stop thinking of food production in terms of this past, old-timey idea. Food production happens now. Homesteading is a movement now. You can do it now. It's starting to fuck the shit out of me because it's dangerous. It's dangerous. You really need to think about your foods in terms of now. Early pagans sold their wares. Pagans now sell their wares at harvest fairs, hold athletic competitions this time of year. You can see this tradition carried on today at country fairs throughout rural parts of the United States. I cannot think of a state that does not have a country fair. When I grew up in Southern California, we went to the Orange County Fair, we went to the LA County Fair, we went to the county fair in every damn county that we lived in or was near us. Okay, Enjoy sharing bread and beer with friends on Lughnasad, as we've done for millennia. You might like to bake fresh bread from scratch or brew your own beer as part of the celebration. While you're kneading the bread, add a dried bean to the dough. When you serve the bread, tradition says that whoever gets the bean in his or her piece will be granted a wish. If you like, you can fashion a doll from corn, wheat, or straw to represent the Sun King. To symbolize the time of year when his powers are waning, burn the effigy in a ritual fire as an offering to Mother Earth. The custom of decorating your home with corn cobs, gourds, nuts, and other fruits of the harvest also has roots in Lughnasad. So, good info. But stop thinking of those things in the past context. These things are happening now. These things are open and available to you. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this one's The Wheel of the Year, written by a different author. I have seen lectures from this creator, this author, both at WitchCon and at HexFest. So, and I do have several books from this same person. Between hope and fear. This is going to be pretty poetic, so let's do this. Gaze westward and bid hail and farewell to the sun, for the lengthening of nights is apparent now. Journeying south toward the celestial equator, the sun begins to spend less time above the horizon. We are now halfway to autumn. The fruits of summer are abundant as they give way to the grains of the harvest. The first sheaves are cut and lie waiting in the fields. Although the fruits of labor have reached their pinnacle, the results remain unknown. Until the harvest is brought into the home, we do not really know to what extent our hard work has paid off. Themes of hope, belief, and trust dominate the Sabbat of Lammas, which is also the traditional time for hand fasting between beloveds. Celebration on August Eve or August 1st, Lughnasad represents the first day of Celtic autumn and the last of our 4 great fire festivals of the Celtic year. It is also the first of the 3 annual harvests, along with Mabon, the second harvest, and Samhain, the third and final harvest of the year. Typical Lughnasad observances include the gathering of wild berries and climbing of hills, as well as the visitation to holy wells. The Lughnasad feast typically featured corn and bread baked from new wheat. Oh, I want some cornbread. My baby says get cornbread. You can get cornbread too. That's baking and corn. I'm going to write that next to tacos. Cornbread and beans. It's not quite time for beans yet, at least not in my area, but cornbread sounds hella good with honey butter. Lughnasad was also characterized by the selling of livestock and the country fair, replete with festivals, games, and dances. Often, the celebrations would last for weeks, sometimes the entire month, beginning in mid-July and continuing through mid-August. And that really does resonate because we're talking about fair season. I'm not going to read about Lugh again. I'm not Celtic. I am Catholic. I'm not Celtic. So it's not super interesting to me. Oh, but this one thing I do love about this book that Judy Ann Knock wrote, and she talks about what celestially is happening, because let's be real. Some of you have no interest whatsoever in growing things or in the land the way that I do. I live on a farm for a reason. I want to have a homestead for a reason. Whatever. But you might be really astrologically driven. You might be really star driven. And the Perseids is one of my favorite things in the year. Not only because it peaks on my birthday, which is August 11th and 12th. It's usually the peak of the Perseid meteor shower. But just because shooting stars are just so magic. So just my jam. So they talk about the Perseids. The Perseid meteor shower season has already started July 17th. It peaks on August 12th, puts on a beautiful show through August 24th. There's a theme of hope. So wishing on a star. Wishing on a star. I'm going to put hope. Perseids. Because that's another way to anchor yourself in what's happening in the natural world. Astrological Influences of Leo, which we've talked about. And it does talk about polarity because Leo is the sun and the astrological ruler of Lammas is the moon. So that's the polarity there. And they have a meditation that you kind of read to yourself or you record yourself reading and then you experience it. A spell to influence an outcome, and a ritual for a hand fasting of a year and a day, which is pretty cool if you're going to do that. So the practical craft is an edible llamas effigy. So it sounds like you're going to make a bread in the shape of a man. That's good. But lots of good information, good ideas. It's a lot like a steady, as in not changing at all, Sabbat Almanac. Okay, I haven't finished this whole book, but I pulled everything out of my personal library that pertains to the Wheel of the Year. Byron Ballard is an amazing resource and just exactly, not exactly, but definitely my type of magic. Let's see, there's a picture of her here. And I didn't realize that until I watched her speak the second time. Because the first time she did, I saw her at WitchCon, and she did a thing on circus peanut candy. And like, I don't know what, but my vibe was off because I was like, ew, that's not good candy. I don't even want to buy that or touch it. But then I saw her at Hexfest and I was really moved by her. And then I got her books and I was like, hey, this is literally my jam. Practical, everyday, land-based magic. And so Appalachian for her, but still super cool. I haven't read all of this. When I saw this at the store, I was like, hey, I saw her talk. Let me see what she wrote. And I picked it up, I opened it and I read it and I was like, dude, this is my life. I got this. So I bought it. So let's look together, because we have a little bit of time, at what we are doing. I am nauseous AF. I'm so sorry, guys. This baby is killing me. So she does talk about reaching for bedrock, animism, permaculture, mutual aid, tower time, conceit of the ever-turning wheel, different means of reckoning time, re-enchantment and the use of magic, good neighbors and land spirits, the wheel of the agricultural year. And then just different parts. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but we're going to briefly skim through chapter 7, which is llamas. So 149. But this is on my to-read list. I'm just trying to get rid of some low-hanging fruit, i.e. books that I don't think that I'm going to keep before I get to it. So, letter from the forest farm. And I live on a farm, so this is why she resonates with me. Standing in the harvest season. The first in the series of 3 harvest festivals is usually dominated by bread, making it, sharing it, eating it. Some sources attribute the name Lammas to a corruption of Lughnasad, which makes some sense. The Irish have a festival at the beginning of the month of August that is dedicated to Tiltu. I don't say it right, I'm sorry. The god Lu's foster mother. It's called Lughnasad in the month of August, and Gaelic is me Lughnasad. I'm so sorry. The farm is hot and dry now, and the only place to find any respite is deep in the woods. Even the front porch with its inviting rocking chairs and lush plants is not as pleasant, especially in late afternoon as it faces west. Amen. It is hot outside. We make sun tea on the back porch in the morning and drink it all day long. There are great mounds of lemon balm in the back garden, and its tea is refreshing and oddly relaxing. We are grateful it is so prolific. There has been food to harvest all season long, of course. Radishes in April, broccoli in May, strawberries in June. And of course, this resonates so deeply with me because this is what I'm harvesting where I live. But this is the time when harvesting becomes a frenzied activity. There are so many summer squashes, so many tomatoes. Not quite for me. We had a late spring, but the garlic is calling me and I feel really guilty. I have confirmed addiction to fresh tomatoes, fresh and warm from the garden. It's a joy. The little salad tomatoes that here we call tomatoes don't make it into the house. We wipe them on our aprons and pop them into our mouths as we work in the garden or the orchard. The apple trees are still very young and can hardly be called an orchard yet. We added some bush cherries and a miniature pear tree this year, but they won't bear fruit for several more years. An orchard is a long-term labor of love, and I will probably not live to see its full flowering. That doesn't mean I can't see it in my mind's eye in 30 years' time with apples heavy on the branches, soon to be cider and pie, and all good apple things. These are the days of sweat and effort, something many people don't seem to understand or even appreciate. But there is something wholesome about going to sleep with a tired body and a clear mind at the end of a hot workday, only to wake after a truly restful sleep and start the whole process again. That sounds dreadful to people who don't work like that with their hands, with their whole bodies. Then she talks about skills. So she talks about bread making, which I do make bread. Again, not my favorite season because we use the oven sparingly in the season. I do this more in the fall. So I'm not going to really read into that. So chores, food preservation, that is absolutely one of the major chores this season. I'm going to go buy a massive amount of peaches. We're going to eat some of them, but I'm going to can the rest. And then we'll have cobblers and so on and pies, whatever, for the year. The same thing in June when I do the strawberries. A lot of people will do that with their cucumbers, their tomatoes will be dehydrated, so on and so forth. So food preservation is a major theme. When you grow a garden, there are some vegetables that are ready to eat all at once. It is always the best idea to go to the garden, cut a head of broccoli, clean it, and cook it on the spot. The flavor is best, and the nutritional values are almost as good as raw. Broccoli is one of those crops that tend to come all at once, so you have a couple of options. You can eat as much as you want and share, sell, or barter the rest, or you can eat some and preserve the rest. So then she talks about different methods of preservation. So canning, you're probably familiar with. We can strawberry jam. We'll probably can some peaches. Definitely, I want to can some preserved lemons from my mama's house. But I'm going to do a lot with lemons, and we'll talk about that. Pickling, fermenting, freezing. I do a lot of freezing. And you may be thinking, like, I don't have a farm. What does this mean to me? You can buy things from the farmer's market. You can buy, shop your grocery store sales and buy things. But also, I also buy the ready, like sometimes you'll see like the price for quick sale. I don't know what they call it. Clearance food items, basically. It's like you need to eat this today, or you need to freeze this today, or you need to do something with it today. I do that a lot for meats and vegetables. And then when I get home, I vacuum seal it and I freeze it. Or like they had like 15 pounds of potatoes for cheap. And I just peel them, cut them, put them in a bag, freeze them. They'll be good later. And I put them into containers where I can just freeze them later. Save money, saving, eating, not necessarily fresh food, but, saving money. My point is, if you want to freeze, ferment, can, or pickle, you can still do those things. You can go to your store and buy cucumbers and make pickles, or whatever it is that you want. Don't think that these things are inaccessible to you because you're not growing things or you don't live near a farmer's market. Have an open mind if you're interested. Traditions and celebration. The blessed loops, the blessed loaf, and the ceremony of cakes and ale. Wild food or foraging. Depending on the weather patterns where you abide and also on how those are changing as the global climate shrugs under the weight of the human activity it bears, this time of year can be especially dry and hot. Some fruit trees will bear apples and pears are the most common available in my growing zone. Look out in your town and neighborhood for old fruit trees that are leftovers in suburban areas. We are always delighted to see trees that were planted by a previous homeowner and not harvested by the current one. Ask before you take, a good rule in foraging and in life. If the homeowner isn't using the fruit, they may be more than happy for you to take it and accept the gift of some jars of applesauce after you process them. You are likely to find older varieties of apples and pears this way. Many of the heirlooms have distinctive flavors that we don't encounter at the grocery store, so that also brings me to like my plum tree is blooming. And the plums are delicious. Activities with children. Sharing a loaf person. So again, making a loaf of bread shaped like a person eating it. Corn dollies, a picture frame made of dried corn, drying flowers. The icon is wheat. And then this last ending, season's end. For anyone who has grown a garden, the idea of the first harvest happening in August seems off because we have been harvesting as the crop in question is ready to be harvested. We have been picking and pulling all season long, from the first French breakfast radish and wild gathered chickweed in the very early spring to today. The first of anything gives it significance and an implied history. Instead of laboring under the delusion that nothing has been harvested and enjoyed until now, and lamenting that you can't properly celebrate this day because you are sensitive to grains, look to the symbol of harvest and what that means about gratitude in your life, how you express it, and how you use it. And it says much about your steadfastness, i.e., putting in the work. If you set an intention in the spring, when we literally and symbolically planted our intentions for the year to come, did you tend it to harvest? Is it ready to feed you now? That thing you imagined planting? And that's a good point. So again, Byron Ballard, I love that. This one I won't be reading very much of because this is decadent. It's a lot. It's a meal. I love Danielle Dusky, Seasons of Moon and Flame. So hold on. So it's kind of a lot, and it's best if you read it in its entirety. But I just wanted to share that this is another book that really goes through living through the seasons of the year. Sky Alexander, we've kind of already seen their thoughts on the Sabbats. We can really check really briefly to see if there's anything written different in this book, but because the Wheel of the Year book was a follow-up, it's probably not. But let's just double check. No, it's exactly the same as the other one. I used to look at this one a lot, but I haven't looked at it in some time. Pagan holidays. So really pretty little arts. Lammas occurs on the day of the first harvest of the year, so right around the time your local farmers market starts up in earnest. It is a sign that the hot days of summer are finally coming to an end, and the bounty we have worked so hard all year to ensure has finally arrived. Lammas translates to loaf mass. Traditionally, loaves of bread were placed on altars to honor the green man, the sun god, or the Christian god, depending on who was doing the celebrating. Time for trial marriages, colors orange, yellow, brown, and green, stones carnelian and emerald, herbs, hops, apples, and grains. Ways to celebrate: bake a loaf of bread, hold a feast, make a doll out of corn. Consider taking a significant step in a relationship. So that's kind of resonates with everything we've heard. I'm not going to go through this one because this is dense, but this one has a massive philosophical and ritual chapter on every Samhain, or on every Sabbath. And again, these are Gardenian witchcraft, so you're obviously going to take it with a grain of salt. I'm not even. It goes again to Lou. It's very Eurocentric, British Isles. Let me just see if there's anything that's just like shareable, because they really go into like the history and just really deep into it. The preparation, the ritual, and of course it's high priest and high priestess, and it's pretty dense. I'm thinking this, I'm just sharing this because this is a resource if you really want to look into um, like philosophical and historical information around the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, particularly the Gardenian. I bought this one and I haven't looked at it either, but I love Maya Toll's books. I had all of them. I don't know if she has another one, but she made this one. So she had the herb, the crystal, the bestiary, and this one is like the seasons. So let's look at late summer. So late summer, northern hemisphere is August to the fall equinox. There's work to be done, says Earth, shifting its gaze from sun to the fields beyond sun's shoulder. Just a little while longer, Weasel Sun. I want to see your face while I can. The time is passing, Earth reminds Sun gently. It's important to be gentle at this time of year. It's too late for anything else. Earth sighs. The scorching intensity has passed, but there is still so much to do before sleep. Come, Earth chides, the apples are ripening and the corn is tall. I have much to do to bring in the harvest. Keep my company, my friend. Walk the fields and shine on the orchards. Speckle the creek with rainbows. Our dance is not yet complete. The sun stares at Earth, seeing the first hints of gold threading through the leaves. I'm not ready, says Sun. I know, says Earth. I know. And that's kind of a little poetic intro. So, fire into water. We're talking about grains are ripe, season of work and sweat, bringing in the crops. Our great-great-grandparents knew that the state of the land in late summer told them whether there would be abundance or scarcity in the months ahead. So here's some ideas. You can still read the land where you are to get a sense of time and place. Even an urban street goes through seasonal changes. Explore your own neighborhood, look for the first signs of autumn. Go to a you-pick farm or orchard and harvest your own food. Take a drive in the country and observe the fields, noting when the grain harvests begin. Find touchstones in natural rhythms instead of relying wholly on the calendar. I love that. I wanted to name my son Touchstone, but my husband's not down with it. Food for thought. This is a time to think about sustenance. Sustenance comes from more than just food. What sustains your family? What sustains society? What can you give in return for these gifts? Um, so they're talking about steam. The energy center is the heart. Seasonal practicing, open your heart. Heart energy center, contemplation. Plant medicine is the apple, although I kind of consider apple for fall. Animal medicine is the elephant. Rose quartz and morganite are her crystals. The seasonals. Oh, this is why I love Maya Toll. Look at this sumptuous, just art. Yum. The art. The harvest gathering in. You planted a seed, metaphorically or whatnot, perhaps the start of a project, a relationship, or a business. You nurtured it, watered it, loved it, tended it. You watched it in awe as your dream began to form and take substance. Now it's time to savor what you have grown, gather in this season's abundance, and letting your heart expand with the knowledge of your own ability to create fecundity. The symbol is the witch. Know thy nature. The witch is a chameleon-like archetype because she's a gatekeeper. Another seasonal symptom is symbol is the traveler. Disrupt the ordinary. And then we go on to autumn. But this is just a really their own take of each season and archetypes and beautiful things and concepts around it. And I love Maya Toll's view, so it's really a nice one. Another one that I bought and haven't read, and this is why I'm not buying a book because I'm trying to catch up, is The Year of the Witch by Temperance Alden. I haven't even looked at it. I just bought it on the recommendation of a friend, and so I will get to it. But I think that she's talking about concepts like we're talking about today. I did read You Are Magical, and I can't remember if it has. I do believe, I think it has a brief blurb about Sabbats, but I'm not sure. My back is killing me, but I think that just comes from having a heavy belly full of baby. I don't know. Also, I can't sleep, so I'm trying to find if there's a let's just look at this really quick. I don't think that it's covered, but that's okay. So that's everything. And I also, let me pull up my own site. I wrote a blog about it. Let me make sure that I'm not lying. If I haven't, I'll write another one. No, I didn't. So it's a good time for me to write one then. But that is all that I have for today. So basically, what am I going to be doing? We're starting the Turning Wheel series via Zoom. There's still space for my subscribers to join. If you want to join, make sure that you contact me ASAP because it's by invite only. We're basically going to talk about what we've touched on today, which is like, how do we connect? What does that look like? What does it look like in our local area? What does land look like? And I don't do ritual work, but I do celebrate, reflect, and I'm trying to really solidify and build my practice around intentional living, and also connecting to my ancestors in what they would have considered their day-to-day, their intentional living, their cycle of the year, while also connecting with the literal cycle of the year and the changing of the seasons where I live. So what I'm taking away from this is that we got our first harvest, figuratively and literally. What are we reaping? What are we harvesting? What work have we put in? What are we enjoying? What do we need? What do we need to kind of change, alter, view? As soon as I get my blog post up, I will share it with you guys. For me, I'm socializing. I am putting up food. I am harvesting food. I am counting the days until fall. I am appreciating the hard work that goes into every bite that goes in my mouth. Gratitude is a daily practice for us, but it's also nice to think about, like, wow, how much work goes into food. So I would love to get your comments on what that looks like for you personally, how you might be celebrating. Always super interesting for me. I love feedback on what's going on with you. And, it's always a pleasure to connect. So as I'm going to leave now because I got to go to the bathroom and get ready for the Zoom that's starting in 15 minutes. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. I hope that you got some inspiration or some information from this live, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.